Oh, hot. Welcome back to episode 2 of Bespoke Food, and today we're going to be talking about all things fear food. What is a fear food? A fear food is a food that we obviously fear, but something that we either avoid completely or that we restrict or only have in super small, moderate amounts. So ironically, I actually became so fixated on health foods, and that was after I studied this nutrition course. So I thought I would get into nutrition and learn about all things healthy, that over fixation on what health was. I was so bombarded with information about good ingredients and what are bad ingredients, trans fats, saturated fats, all of this sort of stuff, that it just basically fed into my eating disorder. Often you actually see a lot of nutritionists or people in the whole dieting world and stuff that actually have eating disorders themselves. So for some reason we let this overexposure of healthy and bad foods get the better of us, that led us to become fixated on what we eat and the types of foods that we put into our mouths. And most of the time it starts off as something pretty innocent. I mean, we just want to cut away some foods that maybe we were eating too much of, or we went to first year at university, drank a bit too much, ate too much fast food, and it slowly just trickles down a slippery slope of eliminating all these foods completely and becoming a life where it's so white and black. And that's the thing with eating disorders, that so often there is no balance. It is just all about, I'm going to be super healthy now, cut away every single fear food or food that I deem as bad, and you end up eating a super non-varied and actually unhealthy diet. I couldn't remember the last time I had pasta, and I'm Italian. The irony is that we're trying so hard to be healthy and to eat better, to eat clean, that at the end of it we actually end up being more unhealthy than to start off with. So why are eating disorder people so white and black? I think there is just a sense of like rigidity and, you know, strictness in their diet and well-being and day to day, that everything has to be either one way or another. It's not like you can just go out and, you know, have whatever meal you want with your friends. It has to be, okay, I'm following my meal plan, I'm following what foods I must eat, and therefore I need to find a restaurant that only has my safe foods. And how that's so impactful on your actual day-to-day life. So as I said, it starts off quite innocently. We started just eliminating foods that we deemed as bad, but I think it was this overexposure to people going on fad diets, just dieting in general, low calorie foods, that made us believe that these foods are bad. And it doesn't help that you have social media or books even being released. I know I read a book, I won't mention the name of the book, but it actually, I would say, fed into my eating disorder. It was all about health and every single nut and berry I need to eat in my day, and how ever eating anything with carbs or fat was just so detrimental to my health that I became so unhealthy, all in the sense that I was severely underweight and was probably the unhealthiest I've ever been. So since I've started incorporating all of these bad foods that I deemed as bad back into my diet, I've actually been healthier than ever. Let's just look at a couple of fear foods that I have in my kitchen today that, let's just say, a couple of years back I would have dreaded to have having. So let's just see. Okay, we have some Manny Life peanut butter. This is literally my favorite thing ever. It's a chocolate version, and I mean, how can you just not, yeah, I don't know how you would feel without that. We've also got some, okay, this is like the remnants of my milk chocolate. It's a really nice Belgian brand, and I just used to fear milk chocolate. I told myself that all I enjoyed was dark chocolate, but now, I mean, milk chocolate is better, let's just face it. I know they say a piece of dark chocolate a day or whatever is actually good for you, but it's also good to just have what you really enjoy sometimes. Okay, these. I work in the food industry, so I get all sorts of weird products. They are chocolate covered raspberries, and again, you know, they're kind of weird product, but I used to only allow myself to have chocolate at the end of the day. It was just a weird thing with my AD, and now I just have chocolate whenever I want. Like, this goes with my breakfast sometimes. And oh my word, sweets. I would not let myself ever have sweets. I don't get it. They're just like so, just chewy and yum. And when we actually fear a food so much, so whatever your fear food might be, we end up fearing this food. We have such anxiety, such guilt, such stress, our thoughts are constantly in the future, like what if I have this, what's going to happen, or what's going to be at that restaurant, or you know, I don't know what's on the menu sort of thing, that stress and anxiety about the actual food is more harmful than just eating the bloody cupcake itself. I mean, you might as well just take the cupcake, eat it, and be done with it. It's going to lead to enjoyment, happiness, and no more stress and constant being in the future, getting yourself up into a whole frantic state, because that is actually more stressful than just eating the food itself. So next time you have these thoughts, don't let your brain go on full speed ahead. Rather just acknowledge that, okay, this is a fear food, you know, I don't necessarily want to eat this 10 times a day, but I'm going to have it now, and I'm actually going to challenge myself and to see it as something normal, that it's not abnormal and it's not going to kill you. Ultimately, we want to be able to eat intuitively and just trust ourselves and know that, okay, I'm hungry now, or this is what I feel like having today. I feel like having a salad, I feel like having a pasta. But when you're so early into recovery, or you're still really battling with your eating disorder, you can't think intuitively. You can't think about what do I feel like, because your ED brain is the one that's talking. You actually don't truly know what you want, and it's only until you get to the stage of you've been fully recovered, you've been on the process of recovery for some years, or however many months or time it is, that you can then tell yourself, okay, I intuitively know what I'm going to eat today, and I intuitively know what's best for me. But in the early stages, as I said, you just can't really trust that, and it's best to stick with your meal plan and stick to a fear food challenge. So something that I found really helpful during my ED recovery, and if you feel like, okay, there's some foods that I'm a bit stressed to eat, or you know, I'm anxious about eating this particular item or using this ingredient, whatever it might be, it's going to be the challenge that's going to really help you overcome these fears. So what you're going to do is you're going to take a jar, literally take a physical jar, and write down on a piece of paper individual pieces of foods that you fear, or ingredients, or whatever it might be. So for example, if it's a milkshake, if it's a falafel, if it's a pancake, whatever it might be for you, write them down, put them in a jar, shake it up, and every day you're going to try at least accomplish 1 or 2 of these fear foods. And I'm not saying have one meal that's just got 10 different fear foods in front of you, because any sane person will feel overwhelmed and stressed about it. So try and tackle 1 or 2 a day for a period of time until it becomes normal to you and you no longer have to challenge yourself, and it becomes easy. And the beginning stages, don't get me wrong, it is tough, but it gets easier with practice. So all you need to do is just trust the process and trust that this practice actually does work. In the early stages, I used to find it really tough to eat fear foods alone. I mean, just having an actual meal plan to follow, that was severely overwhelming. So at times, if it was a sister, if it was some parents or friends, whatever it is, ask them to go and enjoy a meal together and say, you know, let's go out for our Friday pizza night, and you're all ordering whatever it is that you want to have on the menu. That way you feel a bit less stressed of doing it alone. I'm not advocating eating, let's just remind ourselves, I'm not advocating eating every fear food every single day 24/7, because that's also not healthy. So remember, it's a balance. We're not black, we're not white, it's just somewhere in between that is a good happy medium. With the fear food challenge, you're going to make it a habit. It's going to become a common practice that you do, and that's just how we have to rewire our brains that are addicted to this eating disorder mindset or way of living. We're going to just try and retrain ourselves that these are normal and they're not actually fear foods anymore, and there's no such thing as a bad food. I remember I used to physically remember, like I used to feel as if I was getting fat. So I would feel as if, okay, if I have this bowl of whatever it is, you know, I used to imagine, oh my god, I'm going to wake up and look like a whale the next morning. That just doesn't happen. It's just all nonsense in our brain. Like, you're not going to turn into a whale. I hope that you found this episode helpful on fear foods. Please do practice the fear food challenge. Let me know what foods you've tried and you've overcome this week. It might be 1, 2, you might have done 2 in one day. That's amazing. The more the merrier. And I promise you with practice it gets easier, so just trust the process. Don't forget, if you enjoyed today's episode, like and subscribe. See you next time.